A province where HNSA wants to make inroads is in the Western Cape, and we now speak to our reporter Nasiphi, who's joining us from the IEC's Results Operating Centre in Cape Town. Nasiphi, good morning to you. Tell us about some of the late voting we understand that also went into the earlier hours of the morning.
Indeed, Aldrin, as you put it, a number of voters were stationed outside the voting stations in a bid to cast their votes last night. And from the communication that was received, IEC had indicated that voting stations open at 7 o'clock and close at 9 o'clock. However, many voted well after that 9 o'clock closing time. We saw the videos last night from our colleague Atam Tongana, who crisscrossed the city of Cape Town, speaking to those voters that were standing and eagerly waiting to cast their votes well after 9 o'clock. And as you put it, less than 1% of votes have started trickling in. And in the Western Cape, it does seem that the two political parties, the ANC and the DA, seem to be the one garnering some of the votes from that less than 1% of the votes that we have received. And as you put it, the Action SA, including a number of other political parties like the PA, have vied for this province, as you do know that the DA has been at the helm of governing the Western Cape for the past 15 years. However, to talk to us about some of the glitches that they experienced, I'm joined by Mr. Hendrickse here, the electoral officer in the Western Cape. So thank you so much for your time. Early in the morning, less than 1%. Yep. Talk to us about some of the challenges. We understand that people voted well into the night.
Yes, there were 34 stations that were still voting around midnight, and they finished the last station in the metro just before around 1-ish. So yes, there were glitches, and I think that's something that we as the IEC need to look at and see how we can improve on our systems and our processes so that we don't have a situation, because I think our voters deserve better service from the IEC.
I'm assuming a moment of self-reflection, but those three stations that you speak of, were they in the metro, and perhaps what were some of the challenges that led to people voting, or rather being in queues until the AMs?
Look, I think, yes, it was in the metro, and I think a lot has to do with our own processes, starting with the number of particular issues. But on the day, I think that in some of the voting stations we were found wanting in terms of ensuring that our process was seamless. I think that is the issue. Maybe we had one or two steps too many, and that sort of snowballs when you times it by X number of people coming. So that is something that we also have to look at in terms of our business process around what happens at the voting station.
We've heard that, we understand that the voting has started and commenced, but we heard that in some stations where the voting station is at a school, the IEC has been asked to leave. Are you aware of those reports?
Not aware of those reports. The voting is done, the counting is almost done. So in those particular cases, I know it's in cases where there's schools, we often are using the school hall and not any of the classrooms. So, but I personally am not aware of any sort of situation where, but we try and finalize the count obviously as soon as possible.
Were there any major incidents or even minor incidents that were reported yesterday outside of the systems that you just mentioned now?
Not really. The weather held up very well. We're glad for that. There was no load shedding. And I think in terms of protest actions, there was here and there maybe. But again, nothing to actually impact on us delivering on the elections.
And as much as the votes have started trickling in, have we already seen the votes being tallied and concluded from Robben Island?
Oh yes, that was done. Robben Island being one of the smallest voting stations in our province with, I think it's about 165 voters. So yes, that process was concluded, but obviously, as you know, it's an island and they depend on transport back to the mainland, and that sort of holds up that particular process too.
With the numbers that we're seeing starting to trickle in, the ANC I think is sitting at 24,000 plus. Are those numbers that are being tallied from in the metro, or are they more of rural communities?
Look, that is a national, the one is the national board, it's a national result. So if you want to look at our province, you have to look at what's happening obviously specifically within the regional ballot and the provincial ballot. And it's really early days, very early days. The results that came in first are from your rural areas, your smaller farming sort of church schools, etc. It's too early to sort of make calls about trends or whatever at this particular stage. But I leave that to you guys. We don't do trend analysis.
We'll have to leave it there. Michael Hendricks, the IEC electoral officer here at the Western Cape. I'll just ask my colleague to zoom into the provincial board there. As you can see from where I'm standing, it does look like the DA is leading with over 2,000 votes thus far. And the ANC currently sitting at 907 votes. It does seem that the PA is making quite the inroad when it comes to the Western Cape, sitting over 700 votes that they have received in this province. And we heard from Gayton McKenzie throughout his campaigning this past couple of months or past couple of weeks that they are looking not only to be a kingmaker nationally, but they are quite confident that they will be making quite inroads and making a dent in the Western Cape.
Nasiphi there joining us from the Results Operations Centre in Cape Town, that is, of course, for the province of the Western Cape.